Before we get started, a couple things we're going to go through. If you've been through some of our trainings before, you might have seen this before, but it's just a good basis to start from. And so one of our core strategies here at Milestone, and it's something that we share at every 101 class, it's something that you'll hear often, one of our beliefs is developing people. So at Milestone, this is the exact slide actually that you see at 101, is we believe it's our responsibility to develop what God has given to us, okay? And so that's not just us as a staff, but as production people on the production team, it's kind of our responsibility to make sure that we're continuing to develop, to make sure that we're continuing to push forward. And so for us specifically, we're going to keep developing our skill today on CG so that we can continue to serve our church well. So I want to just spend just a moment talking about this. This is something that we've started to bring up a lot on our production team, and we're going to continue to bring it up more and more, but everything that we do is profoundly spiritual. Every button that we press, every slide that we make, every change that we make last minute before service starts, every request from the worship pastor to change lyrics 2 minutes before the service, everything that we do is profoundly spiritual, okay? Nothing that we do is to be cool, nothing that we do is to be nerdy and fun and geek out, and I geek out over all that stuff, everything computer, but everything we do is profoundly spiritual, okay? Everything we do has a spiritual impact. Every slide that we make, all the time that we spend making sure lyrics look great, are spelled correctly, are punctuated correctly, all of it is for a spiritual impact. And so, your first point here, just on your little handout thing, since everything we do is profoundly spiritual, we will always show grace for making mistakes, okay? I often joke that CG is the hardest job on the weekend. And joke is probably not even the right word, because I really do believe that CG is the hardest job on the weekend when it comes to production. You guys, if you run CG, you are on from before service, at least in the weekend environment, you're on before service all the way through the end of the service. You are doing worship, you're firing all the videos, then you're following the pastor through all the notes, and firing all that. And so you are on for an hour and 10 minutes straight. You get a quick 5-minute bathroom break or something sometimes, and then it's back on it for 2 more services on Sunday. And so with all of that, it's a difficult job, okay? But because everything we do is profoundly spiritual, we're always going to show grace for mistakes. What that means is how we interact with each other, okay? If Tim is running CG, and not to pick on Tim, but if he's running CG and he clicks on the wrong lyric or the wrong something and it throws the worship team off, we don't like mistakes, but at the end of the day, Tim is part of our team. And so what we're not going to do to Tim is we're not going to jump on him. We're not going to say, hey, we're not going to get in his grill. We might jump on ClearCom and say, hey, we're on the next slide. We might say it nicely, but we're always going to show grace for making mistakes. Everybody on our team will make a mistake at one point. CG is so difficult. It's an important thing to remember. Because everything we do is profoundly spiritual, we're not comfortable with mistakes, okay? We don't like mistakes. There's a lot of type A people in this room, I'm sure. I'm type A myself. I hate doing things incorrectly. I hate doing things not 100%. We can go on and on with a bunch of Bible verses and everything to do stuff with excellence, yada, yada, yada. But we're not comfortable with mistakes, okay? Just because we show grace for mistakes doesn't mean that we're okay with it, all right? And then the third and final thing, just on this note, we will always push to be better, okay? Because everything has such a profound spiritual impact in what we do, we're always going to push to be better. We, as a production team, have an interesting role that worship, and you got worship guys on the platform, you have speakers on the platform. It's funny how profound an impact that we have as a production team, because without production, there's not going to be much communication going on. So if you think through audio, if you think through all the graphics, if you think through lighting, if you take all of those things out of the equation, we have quite a big role to play, okay? So that's just part of one of the many reasons why we're here this morning. And what I want to do is I just want to make sure that we keep this just kind of at the forefront of our mind as we move forward, okay? Because this is the bigger picture, all right? I tell people all the time, I value unity above perfection, okay? I would rather have someone who is less talented and less experienced on our team who loves to serve Jesus and wants to learn than have a rock star of a CG operator, okay? But by you guys being here and learning, I think we can have the best of both worlds, okay? So, with that being said, we're going to jump into CG training. So any questions on any of this? It's pretty straightforward. So everybody good? Cool. Okay. CG training. So here we go. What I have in your hands is our CG kind of training packet. It's a few pages long. It's something that we are starting to create for every position. Tim, would you mind handing me one of those? It's something that we have created for a couple positions. We're creating for every position as we go, as we do these trainings. I think this is like our third training we've done in the past year or so. And so I'm not going to spend time reading through all of this because we're going to spend most of our time hands-on in the program learning a lot of stuff. But a couple of things I just want to point out is on the first page, or page 2 technically, core competencies, okay? And so core competencies, you can call it core competencies, you can call it benchmarks, you can call it whatever you want to. This list of things is something that we want to make sure that all of our CG operators get to a point of doing, okay? These are, for us on the weekend, this is one of the, all these things are probably the most reoccurring things that we do on a weekend. And so we want to make sure that that everybody is comfortable with doing those things. We're going to walk through all of these at some point today, but I just want to point that out. If you are operating on a weekend and don't feel comfortable with one of those, make sure you just let us know. We'll make sure that we get you up to speed. And so that's something there. The next page, on page 3, you'll see some CG terminology. A couple of things I want to point out on this before we keep going is CG. What does it stand for? Computer graphics, okay? It's not computer generation. It's not Camp Gladiator. It is computer graphics, okay? There's a couple different terms we use to actually, I guess, denote firing a slide, okay? We call it fire, so we'll say fire that slide. We'll say go a lot. We'll say go video, go slide. We'll say go CG a lot over headset. But essentially that just means click on it, okay? That means take it to the screen. That means we're activating that slide, okay? Standby just means hold on, okay? Some of these terms are like probably terms you've heard throughout your life, but just to kind of go from a production standpoint, you'll hear Eric and I on headset a lot, if not some other directors on headset. We do a lot of standby, okay? So standby CG, video coming up here in just a minute. It basically just means hold on, get ready, you can go and get your mouse where it needs to be, it's coming up, and we'll go from there. Resolution, lower third, stage display, we'll get all to those here in just a little bit. And then there's some best practice notes. On page 4, you'll see just kind of our typical schedule just for our production team in general. This is something that we've just been putting in all of our training as packets as we hand them out to specifically new people as they join our team. So, okay, cool. So you can set that to the side because I want to spend the majority of our time going through this program, but I wanted to, Blake is texting me. Why are you not texting me back? Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're going to start from the ground up, okay? So if you've been serving on CG for a while, hang with us for the first tiny little bit. We're going to go through kind of the basics of it. Odds are we only use, on a weekend service, we only use CG in a particular capacity of ProPresenter, okay? So, but there's a lot of functions in ProPresenter that that would seem basic that we probably have just never talked about or used about. And so if you've used it for a long time, hang with us. If you haven't, we're going to start from the ground up. But at the end here, I'm sure there's already 2 things in here that when I was going through it, I learned myself. So I'm sure there's going to be a couple things that everyone's going to learn today. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop out of here and switch over to here. I'm going to start my screen recording here so we can use this for later. Okay, and so each computer's slightly different, just by the way, because they're all from different locations. You might have some different images in your background and stuff like that. The library itself should be fairly new, I think, on all of y'all, as we created a fresh new library for today. But there might be a few differences as we go throughout. So factory guys, don't worry, we didn't delete anything from you guys. We just created a new library. I'll show you where it's at. Okay, so interface overview. Okay, so we're just going to walk through just kind of what each position is on ProPresenter here. Okay, so this right here is the preview of our output. Okay, so everything right here, everything that happens right here is going to end up on the screen. Okay, this is the exact replica of what's on your screen. With that, in between here and here, you can drag to make this bigger. Okay. You can drag from side to side here to make it bigger. You can make it smaller. A lot of people that I know tend to make this fairly small to make your other area of your screen bigger so you can see where you're clicking versus actually what's on screen, because typically you can see that on the screen. Sorry, that was me. On the screen that's on the wall, okay? But you can change that size here. Something I want to point out for our CG guys for the weekend specifically, but factory I'm sure too, you can take the time when you get here to make yourself comfortable with ProPresenter, okay? There's a lot of stuff like dragging around sizes and zooming in on things and kind of making your workspace work for you. There's a lot of things that you can do to make it easier on yourself, okay? Just because we have it set up one way when you walk in, as far as user interface and zooming in and out doesn't necessarily mean you have to operate like that, okay? Okay, so this is our preview window there. On our preview window, if we were to have stage display hooked up, which we don't today, we do it like in the worship center. Stage display is where we have on the back wall, there's lyrics so the worship singers can see what's coming up next. If you were to hover your mouse under this preview monitor right here, you can toggle back and forth between what is your main output and what is your stage display output, okay? So you can click that little button, it'll show up when it's activated. That'll essentially, for us in there, you can just look on the back wall and you can see it. But if you wanted to take a quick glance there, that's an easy way to do it, okay? Video, right under that is video playback controls, okay? So for playing a video, you'll have play, you'll have stop. You can jump in your timeline of your video. So if we are, let's see, I'll get to that later. So those are your playback controls there. Down on the bottom left here, you have some plus buttons. This is where you can add a playlist, okay? On a weekend, right here I have a couple different ones. I have default 101 and training. You guys, I don't think we'll have anything in that spot. So what you can do right now, you can go ahead and do this with me. If you can, on the bottom left, there's a plus button here. You can click that. It's going to bring up new document, new playlist, new group folder, new PCO playlist, and new header, okay? I want you to go ahead and click on new playlist. And it's going to prompt you to type something. So you can go ahead and just type training, okay? On any given weekend, all these playlists is where we keep the differences between weekend services, Elevate, Restore on Monday nights. Basically, any service that happens in there, they basically have their own playlist. Okay, and so when you guys come in on the weekend, we're already on the weekend playlist. But so these are playlists. These are just different ways to organize our media. Okay, let's see. Oops. Okay. With that, you can also add folders. Okay, so go back to that plus menu, and you can go to New Group Folder. Okay, it'll pop up. It'll say New Group. You might have to click on it to be able to edit the text, but you can go there and you can change it to, let's just say, Training Group, and you can hit Enter. And then you can drag however many playlists you want to under that folder. It's just another way to keep organized. The more playlists that we have, specifically on the weekend, and Video Cafe a lot too, there's a lot of stuff that happens in there. Sometimes having a folder of all your playlists makes things a bit easier. Okay. There's an option on the bottom right here. You'll see some arrows. Left and right, that if you click on that, will simplify your view. So before we do that, we need to drag in a presentation or a song. Okay, so if you're on the training, the playlist that you just made, I want you to go up above it. You should see the song Always Will. I want you to drag that song into the training playlist. So as long as you have training highlighted, you can drag it right into here, into this empty section here. That'll add it to your playlist. Okay. And then down at the bottom right, ProPresenter calls this like a focus view, but you can click on these two arrows right here. It'll basically hide the whole library. It'll hide all the playlists. Makes it just a little bit more simplified to operate on the weekend. So you can do that, okay? Any questions so far? Good. Okay, so this main area here, if you have Always Will selected, you'll see there's lyrics in there. This is called the document area, okay? That's what ProPresenter calls the document area. Here's where you see all of your slides. This is really basic, but if you click on it, you'll fire it. You'll see it on your preview window to the left here, okay? If you click on the next one, it's going to fire the next one. There's different ways to fire. You can hit the space bar. Space bar will fire. You can hit the left and right arrows. Those will fire. You'll see the ones that you are on will highlight. Okay? Yeah, so the significance of the bars, we're going to get to that in a minute, but it's essentially group labeling. And that's going to really help us with one of the more advanced things that I don't think anybody knows about yet. So, but it's essentially, it breaks up the song it delineates it from verse, chorus, pre-chorus, that type of thing. It's not only a color reference for you operating so you can jump to it quickly, but it's a way that we can rearrange songs really easily later on. So, this will solve a lot of headaches for a lot of our weekend guys. Okay, so after that, up at the top of the document area, you'll see the title Always Will, and next to it you'll see an I. This is the information slide, okay? Under the information slide, there's a bunch of different categories that you can mess with. The first one right above it is in dark gray. It's called Notes, okay? This is something we don't use a whole lot, but something you easily could. Notes is an easy way just to take a couple notes on the song, such as, hey, these slides transition really fast. Watch the transition between slide 15 and 16. Or if there's something funky, like if we have a video after slide 17, you could put some notes in here and it'll save with your song. Any type of reminder that you need for the song. Title, artist, author, publisher. Something that we don't do. This is all copyright information. But if we were to display copyright information live in our services during our songs, ProPresenter makes that easy, and so that's where you would put that in. But again, we don't currently do that. Okay, so I'm going to click that arrow. I'm going to collapse that right there. Okay. Over here, just to make things a little bit simpler. Actually, no, we're going to leave that up, and we're just going to close the I there. Over here on the right, there's a few different master options here, okay? The far right one is your transition master, okay? So this is basically changes your transitions for all of your slides. So this is, if we were to pick one, let's just, I don't know, pick a silly one here, cube. If you do that, then all of your slides on this one particular document will use that transition, okay? So it's an easy way to apply the exact same transition throughout. We use that mostly in our pre-service. Everything else we pretty much use is a straight cut or a dissolve. But if we wanted to use dissolves on this song for some reason, you could click dissolve, then down here you can change your duration time, how long it takes to dissolve. Okay, so we can do a 5-second dissolve, which would be really slow, and it'll slowly fade over 5 seconds. It's really nasty. but that's the control you have. The default is cut, I believe, or just like a quick fade. So we'll leave it there for now. The next one, timeline view. Timeline view, we don't necessarily use this one on the weekend, but this is essentially you can throw in a track. And inside factory guys probably might use this more than we would on the weekend, but you can throw in a track up here, and then you can time out all of your slides to the track. Okay, and so you can add your audio track in there. You can drag your slide into 16 seconds or 24 seconds, and then when you go to hit play, it'll play your track, and then it'll play those slides at the exact right time. Okay, cool. Okay, we're going to collapse that. And then next to that is arrangement view. Okay, we're going to dive into this a little bit later, but arrangement view, this is where those groupings that we were talking about just a second ago, John, come in really big handy. We can make different versions of the song that have different arrangements for different environments. And this makes it super simple for us, but we'll touch back on that in a second. And then the last one up here is your transition master. Okay, so transition master, this just says how long we want to stay on each slide before it transitions automatically. We use this again a lot in our pre-roll. Every 10 seconds, our announcement loop advances to the next slide. So basically, we come in here, we hit 10 seconds, and it puts, you'll see on each slide, it'll say a 10-second timer. So that means when we fire it, it's going to sit there for 10 seconds, and then it's going to transition to the next one. Okay? So good so far, everybody good? I'm going to hit remove all here so that doesn't keep going. Okay. Down here on the bottom left, above your playlist, you'll see an option that says contiguous view. You guys only have a couple of things on your computer, so you have to look at my screen on this one. I'm going to throw in just a few different, say, songs on here. With contiguous view enabled, you can keep scrolling from one song straight into the next. Okay, it puts it on one scrolling long thing. So once you get finished with the next one, you can go right into the next one. It makes it just basically one big page. Okay, without contiguous view, you can only scroll with what is selected. Okay, you can't scroll down into the next one. It's just another user preference. It's a user interface deal. You can use contiguous if you want to. You can use it if you don't want to. Sometimes that makes it easier to get around. On the very bottom right of your screen down here, this is your zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so down here you can make the slides as big or as small as you want to. This makes it easier to see, harder to see, depending on what you're looking at. Completely up to you, your preference, and how you want to do that. I would suggest not making it so big that you can't get around very fast, but you can make it pretty big and pretty small. Next to that, you'll have a different way of looking at things. So this is the thumbnail view or the grid view. And then down here, I think they call it table view. It's just another way to see your lyrics. This table view is helpful if for some reason whatever type of media we have makes it difficult for you to read the lyrics. Okay? Sometimes there's a graphic or something that on your computer makes it more difficult to read. This just makes it a little bit easier to see where you are, to see what the lines are. This also works really well for two-line type of environments. I'll explain that a little bit later, but essentially it works really well for two-line environments. Okay, I'm going to go back to grid view here. These are all just different ways that you can run the computer. Let's see. Down here on the bottom, towards the left here, you'll see video image transitions and then background transitions. Okay. These are all, and we'll get to the difference between foreground and background here in just a moment, but these are all areas where you can affect the transition of, say, if you have some background images. I'm gonna, if you come up here to the top, if you click video and image bin, it'll pull up this bottom section. We don't use the video image bin on the weekend, but this is something you can use a lot in other environments. I have a video here. You guys may have one or two graphics in there. If you don't, it's okay. It's not that important right now. But essentially, it fires videos, and down here for that green transition, is going to affect the transition of this video bin, okay? So you can have a different transition set for your lyrics up here in your master transition, or you can have a different transition set for your video image bin down here for all of your videos, okay? So I'm going to go and close this back. I'm going to click up the open video image bin. I'm going to close that out. Okay, let's go through the toolbar. So the toolbar at the top here, top left, clear all. Just as it sounds, clears everything off the screen, clears all your slides, backgrounds, video. Second one is clear slides, okay? Just as it sounds. It's going to clear the slide, but it's going to leave the video on. So I'm going to fire this video again just to show the difference. So there's a video going, but I want to clear the lyrics. That cleared my lyrics, but left the video going. There's a black space in the video here. Skip ahead, okay? I'm going to hit clear all to clear the video, okay? Actually, I'm going to fire that back up. The other one right here is clear backgrounds, okay? So that's going to clear our background video, okay? But if we had lyrics up and this up, and we hit clear background, it's going to leave our lyrics up, okay? So it's just like it sounds. It clears only the background. This one clears only the slides, and this one clears everything, okay? Clear all is the panic button. It's the lack of better term, it's the oh crap button, okay? When we're not sure where anything is at, sometimes we jump to that, okay? The next one in the toolbar here is the new, okay? If you click on that, it'll basically pop up a dialog. This is where we enter a new song, okay? This is where you can title it, whatever the song is. If we were creating a song called Always Will, this is where we type in Always Will. Template, if you click here, ProPresenter has a bunch of built-in default templates. If yours doesn't have all the default templates, that's okay. But essentially, there's a bunch of different templates. On the weekend, we have a template for our lower thirds lyrics, so they all look the same anytime we do it, so we have consistency. We'll get into making a document here in just a second, so I'm going to hit cancel, and we're going to keep moving along. Audio. Audio bin, this is not something we use very often. We may use it on a Christmas weekend in the weekend environment, but this is where you can throw in a bunch of MP3 tracks, where you can fire MP3s, you can fire any type of audio cues there. The next one, I'm going to click audio again just to close it out, and I'm going to click video image bin too to close that one out. Next one is messages. Messages, this is a way where you can quickly type a message and you hit show message. It'll come up on the screen based upon whatever template you have most used. This is a quick and easy way to get fired as a CG guy. If you just type anything you want in there and just throw it on the screen, that's what I always joke about. But I had one guy at a previous place that I used to serve at that he was always frustrated that the church would never be, really straightforward with, good old Bible preaching, from back in the day. And so every time he'd come to log on to his CG computer, the first thing he would type on the messages was repent, and he'd put a bunch of, capitalizations. Anyway, side note. He didn't last long. So that's the messages there. You can change from message to countdown, okay? And so countdown is probably something that we would use most often in this scenario. So you can hit that down arrow, you can switch it to countdown. Right here is where you can put how long you want the countdown to be. Right now the default is a 10-minute thing, so you can hit start. It'll start 10 minutes here, but it won't show on your screen until you hit show message, okay? When you hit show message, it says session will begin in 10 minutes, okay? So that countdown's going. The reason why it says session will begin in 10 minutes is because that is the template for the countdown that is selected, okay? So to the right of countdown, you have this pencil, this pen, whatever you want to call it. You can click that. That's kind of your edit right there. And right here, you'll see where it says message text, session will begin in, and then you have a token that replaces your countdown. So typically, we like to put countdowns in the bottom right corner or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete session. I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to throw in countdown 1 because this is what we want to appear. I'm going to click remove hour zeros so it's a little bit cleaner. And then I'm going to hit hide and I'm going to hit show message again, and that'll refresh it. And now you'll see it's really small, but now you'll see it's just the countdown going, okay? Your template, of which we'll get back to again, will determine how big or how small your countdown clock is, okay? I'm going to keep moving on because we're going to get into a little bit more of the weeds here in just a minute. Bibles. Bibles are a quick and easy, super easy, best thing on the face of the planet. Eric can attest to this as he does a lot of the message notes. The best way to put in Bible verses, okay? Especially when the pastor says, hey, I want to preach on, I don't know, Joshua 6, and you're like, the whole chapter? And they're like, yes, the whole chapter. And you're sitting here thinking, how do I type out 50 verses in 5 minutes? And so essentially with Bibles, you guys probably don't have a Bible installed when you click on it on these computers, but the bulk of our main presentation computers have Bibles installed. And so you'll come up here, you'll click on a version. I have King James Version installed right here because it's a free version. But then you can come in here, you can type Genesis 1:1, hit enter. It has it for you. It works off, again, the template that you've created, and will format it right for you, and it's one of the best things ever. There's a different way you can hit the drop down. You can go through and you can select, Numbers 2, 1, and so there you go. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to hit the X next to that, okay? Store, we're not going to go into that at the moment, but essentially you can buy some backgrounds and images and stuff like that. Social media, this is what we've used for basically our women's events. Over here on the gear icon, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you can log into your Twitter account or Instagram account. This is where we pulled in live pictures for, from Instagram. We had the hashtag SummerSplash16, and throughout the presentation, we were able to pull in live results from social media. It's kind of cool. And then template. Template on here, if you have some default ones, you can look through that. I wouldn't recommend clicking on any of them right now just because that'll mess up our stuff for later. But if I were to click on any of these, it would change the current template of my always will that I have selected right now. Format. This is a quick, easy way to change the formatting of this whole song. So if we didn't like, say, a particular font that we're using, we can go pick a font. And it'll change the font for all of the slides at once. I'm going to hit Command-Z to do undo, so that doesn't save. But you can do the same for fonts, sizes, color. We can make all of our lyrics go to the middle. So we can hit this middle justify, hit apply. Oh, made it black. See, I got to change my color to white so we can see it. But my text box is messed up, so this is a bad example. If your text box is, I kind of custom made the text box for a little something we're going to do a little bit later. But if our text boxes are normal, like on the weekend, you can change the justification of your lyrics with the middle justify here. We do this a lot between us on the weekends and Elevate on the weekend, or Elevate on Wednesdays. Elevate runs their lyrics in the middle because they don't do cameras. And so we go to this a lot just to change the lyrics to middle justify so it doesn't look weird. You can also add a shadow just by clicking on the shadow. You can add an outline by clicking on the outline. Sometimes that helps it pop out from whatever background you're using, okay? And then finally is the output. Right now, all of your outputs will have a red icon on them. That means off. That's because you don't have another display connected to your computer. Factory and Video Cafe, those will need to be, the output needs to be on for an image to actually make it to the projectors, okay? The production, weekend production, you guys just use SDI out. It's a little bit different. So that actually stays off for weekend production all the time. And then the final thing is a volume. This is volume independent control for ProPresenter, okay? If you're on the weekend team, please don't mess with this. This is one of those things, it's like the last thing an audio guy thinks to check is not only the system volume, but the volume within ProPresenter. So we leave that up 100% of the time. There might be some applications in other environments where that may be useful for you guys. But we typically leave that up. It gives you a little bit extra control. So, okay. Any questions so far? that's just all layout of the program. We're going to get into basically how to make a song next. Everybody good? Cool. Okay, I'm going to hit clear all on the top left just to get rid of what I've been messing with here. Okay, so we're going to go to new. Okay, so in your toolbar, top left, green plus new icon. Okay, and let's do Amazing Grace. Okay, so file name, Amazing Grace. You guys can go ahead and type that in. Under template, feel free to select a template of your choice. Let your artistic person inside of you come out. I need to pick one that's easier to read. I'm just going to pick the full page thing. Okay. When you're done with that, you can click New. Oh, I already have Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace 2. You guys can call it Amazing Grace, but I already have it in mind. Okay. From here, you're going to get a blank slide. Okay. Is everybody to that point yet? Great. So after that, what you want to do is you want to there's two different options here. I like to right-click on the slide and go to Edit Slide. The other way you can do it is right next to the New button, you have an Editor button. You can click on that. It takes you to the same thing. Okay, so you can either right-click on it, hit Edit, or you can click the Editor button. So if you're on a Mac, which all of us are, by default, most of the computers don't have right-click. And so if you need to right-click, hold down the Control button and then click. That'll enable your right-clicking ability, okay? Okay, so within this, basically, just like it says, double-click to edit. You can double-click right there, and we can type Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, okay? I'm going to go ahead and do the second one that saved a wretch like me, okay? That's all I'm going to type for now. So I'm going to click out of that, and that becomes our slide, okay? So that's our first slide. To add another slide down here at the bottom, there's a plus button right here. That's going to add a slide, okay? It's going to add a blank slide. So if you want to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to type in the next one. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Okay? Awesome. And then for the majority of our applications, just as a rule of thumb, I love to put a blank slide after everything's done and a blank slide before everything's done. So I'm going to add 2 blank slides. So if you hit the plus button twice, I'm going to drag one of these to the beginning here just to rearrange. You can click and drag them. So we have a blank slide before and a blank slide after. And then I'm going to call this good for Amazing Grace for all demonstration purposes, okay? Outside of that, okay, say we're done typing in our lyrics. I'm going to hit the X button, which is on the top left here. I'm going to click there. And then this is where I'm going to go in and I'm going to delineate what is verse, what is chorus, just to help not only myself run it later, but to help any volunteer that helps run it later, okay? So back in your document view here, if you right-click on slide number 2, so the first verse here, you can come down to New Group, okay? This is where you want to go to verse 1. And it's going to basically make from where you clicked until you tell it otherwise is verse 1, okay? I know the second one is not verse 2, but we're going to make the second one verse 2 for the test, okay? So then we're going to go to slide 3. We're going to right-click, and we're going to go to New Group. Verse 2, okay? And then for this last one, since it's a blank slide, I'm going to do New Group. I have one called Black. That's because I made it. You guys probably don't have one. So for this one, you can just hit None. So that as we're going along, it's just some color indicators. It's also some rearranging indicators that we know where we're going. If on the bottom left, if you want to go back to Always Will here, you can get what I'm talking about here. Verse 1 will go all the way through here, and you have color references just to let you know. Occasionally throughout a worship set, as you guys know, a worship leader would like to hop around and go to different places on a song. Color indicators are fantastic ways to quickly kind of cue your mind of where you need to jump to. Okay? So let's do this. Let's take Amazing Grace that we just made. Should be in your library. Okay, we're going to add it to our training playlist. So you can drag it down to your playlist. You'll see a blue line appear when you're down there that just kind of lets you know where you're dragging it into. Drop it in there. So now we have our playlist up and going. Okay? Everybody good? Yeah. So from your library here, you can find Amazing Grace. And you can click and drag it down to your playlist here. You'll see a blue line appear that kind of shows you where in your order that you're placing it. Yep. Okay. Let's do this. We're going to go through and we're going to add some graphics here. So we're basically going to create our pre-roll that we do on the weekend. Okay. So go back up to new. I'm going to create new. Change the file name to, we would call it pre-roll. So I'm going to call it pre-roll. Template doesn't matter for this one because we're going to drag in all graphics. Okay, so once you do that, hit new. And again, you'll be greeted with the familiar blank slate. Okay. On your desktop, there is a folder. My desktop is nasty right now. You have to forgive me. On your desktop, there's a folder called CG Content for Training. Okay. You may have to drag the program over. On the right side of the program, you can drag your program smaller if you need to. That's probably the easier way to see your desktop. Okay. So I'm going to drag it smaller here. CG Content for Training. You can double-click that folder to open it up. And inside that, you'll see another folder that says Pre-Roll. You can double-click that to open it up. Okay. This is just kind of a bunch of announcement slides. You'll want to click and drag a box around all of these slides. Okay? And then click on any one of them and drop them in. When you go to bring it into your pre-roll slide, you'll want to pay attention to where that light blue bar is. Okay? You'll see it after slide 1. That's letting you know where in your document you're dragging it to. Okay? So I want to drag it to after this slide, before this slide. For our purpose in this case, it doesn't really matter, but if you're dragging in some media, order does matter from time to time. So I'm going to drag all 12 of them into here. I'm going to let go, and it'll populate all the slides. Okay? Then I'm going to go to this first blank one, and I'm going to delete it. Okay? So I'm going to right-click on the black empty slide here. At the very bottom, you'll see delete. Okay? So I'm going to delete that one. Okay. Now we have all of our slides in. So click on it. It's going to fire. It's going to take over your preview screen. But the trick to all of our pre-roll is it automatically advances. So that's where we go back to our master timer right up here. I'm going to make this bigger again. Right here, our master transition here. Okay. We like to do what we call cover. Okay. So I'm going to hit cover. It's a 1-second transition by default. It sounds good to me. You get to also pick the direction in which it covers. We just keep it standard, nice and easy. So I'm going to close that. And then you want to come to this clock for your transition master timer, and you're going to say 10 seconds, okay? Again, that automatically applies that when you click on it, every 10 seconds, it's going to advance to the next slide. You'll also notice on your last slide here, the Spirit-Filled Life. That's the last one for me. I think it should be the last one for you guys as well. But it populated an arrow right here, okay? When you put a master timer on all of your slides, it helps you out, and it puts an arrow that automatically restarts it to the beginning of the playlist, or to the beginning of the document, rather, okay? So for you to get to the last one, after 10 seconds, it's just going to go to the beginning. It's just going to keep going in one big loop, okay? All clear there? So, say for example, if you wanted to change the transition, you're like, man, that transition is nice and cheesy. You can change it to dissolve. It'll automatically change all of your transitions to dissolve, okay? I'm going to put it back to cover. You can also individually change the transitions on all of your slides, okay? So if you didn't want them to all be the same transition, I'm going to click this free resource one right here. I'm going to right click on it, and you can hit transitions. And you can pick a transition just for this one slide. Okay, if you wanted this one to stand out for some reason, you can make the transition on that one different. You can select a transition of your choice. And now it does this nice little kind of creepy spotlight vignette thing. So you can set transitions per individual slide as well. Okay, you can do this on lyrics too. It's not necessarily just media, but that's just, there's a million different ways to skin the cat on this one. So pre-show loops, got it, stage display. Okay, that's our pre-show. Let's add something else. Okay, let's add our announcements. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna hit new again. Okay, and I'm gonna call this welcome. So we typically call it on the weekend. So I'm gonna hit enter. Okay, and then in that same folder on your desktop, CG content for training, you can double click on that. You should have a folder in there called announcement video. Okay, and same thing like we did last time. You can take that, drag it in to the welcome, put it there, and now it's a part of your welcome playlist. There's a couple important things to check when you import a video. When you import a video, you want to right-click on a video, and you want to go to Media Properties, okay? This is muy importante, okay? Under that, you'll want to click on Properties category right here. And Behavior. This is one that can trip us up from time to time. ProPresenter does a pretty good job of delineating when a video needs to be looped and when it doesn't. Typically, it judges by the length of the video if it needs to be looped or not, and it tries to do that automatically for you, auto-magically for you. However, sometimes it guesses incorrectly, and so behavior, we want to make sure for our announcement videos, anything that we don't want to play a second time through, we want to make sure it says stop and not loop, okay? Why would you use loop? You would use loop if you're doing some type of motion background behind lyrics that you just want to keep playing, continuously. But for the majority of our videos on the weekend, we want to make sure that says stop, okay? This is a very important thing to check. Otherwise, when you're in service, the video ends, it starts over by itself, and everyone says, what just happened, okay? There's a couple of things you can do in here. You can change the volume of just that one particular video. You can make it louder or softer. Not something I would suggest messing with too much, but there's that there. You can also mess with the play rate. You can make it play twice as fast. You can make it play slower. You can change all of that. Let's say someone sends you a cell phone video or some type of video that's not formatted correctly, so a video that's not 16:9. You have some different options here to scale the video to fill your screen, or to stretch the video to fill your screen. The artist inside me gets very squeamish when the word stretch is used, because it makes things look funny, but sometimes it is helpful, so that's there. Okay, you can also set in and out points. This is also somewhat important because let's say someone gives you a 10-minute video. This happens to us on the weekend. Say the very last part of the video has like a 10-second black space or something that really throws off all of our countdowns and everything like that. What you can do is you can come in here under these properties and you can say, I want this video to end at 6 seconds left in the video, okay, or whenever is left in the video. You can click what is sort of hard to see on the screen right here, but it says out right under that. You can click out, and that creates an out that says this is when I want the video to stop, okay? And so this is really helpful for those long trail outs that we sometimes get on the weekend. So you can click out. That means when we fire the video next, the video is going to end on this frame that we're looking at right here, okay? If you messed up on that, then you can come down here to reset in and out, and that'll just set it back to its default normal play length size. Okay? Pretty good so far? Jacob's laughing, so it's either a good or a bad thing. I should be like a teacher. Do you guys have something you want to share with? I'm just kidding. Clicking too many buttons. Okay, so I'm going to close that out. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to drag welcome from our library under Amazing Grace, okay? I'm going to get rid of these other ones so it's similar to you guys. Okay, and then we're also going to drag our pre-roll, which you should have in your library here. We're going to drag that to the beginning of the playlist. There. So now we kind of have a service set up and ready to go here. We have our pre-roll, Always Will, Amazing Grace, and then into our welcome, okay? Another quick thing to note, you can use your up and down arrow keys to go in between these different playlist items. It's a quick way to do it. Also in your library, as you guys know from the weekend, our library gets pretty crazy with a lot of stuff. There's a search bar here. So where if we were looking for pre-roll, you can type pre-roll and it'll come up. It's just an easy way to search throughout your song library. Okay? Okay. Stage display. Let's talk about stage display. Stage display, again, is what we use on the back wall. This is where we put our Planning Center online clock. This is where the worship guys see current and next slide. But it takes a tiny bit of setting up to do. So in the top left of your screen, you'll want to go up to Pro Presenter, and then you'll want to go to Preferences. Okay, once you're there, you'll want to go to the second tab, which says Display. And then right here, you'll want to click Configure Stage Display. Okay, this is going to be the default layout that Pro Presenter gives you. Okay, we've messed around with it to make it work for us. But essentially, on the right here is where you can decide what you want on your stage display. I'm going to go ahead and de-click a few things, so it's resembles a little bit more like our weekend service. So I'm going to de-click current slide notes. We don't need that. We don't need next slide notes. We don't need chord charts. We also don't need clock, but we do like video countdown. That gives us a good countdown on the back wall to let us know. You can get rid of message. You can get rid of use flash color. And then PCO login. PCO login, this is where we would edit our PCO weekend clock. Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. So inside of this, you can click and drag around where our current slide is. I'm just going to set it up like kind of we have it on the weekend right now, so it looks familiar. I'm going to drag this video countdown over here. Next slide over here. I'm going to drag this out. Drag this out. Okay. So as we click in slides, you'll see the slide that you're currently on, then you'll see the next slide coming up, okay? So this is just a good cue for our worship guys on the weekend. And right here, you'll see a video countdown. If we were to play our video, I'm gonna slide over here, you guys don't have to do this, but if we were to play video, you'll see video countdown. We'll start counting down to let us know, people on the stage know how much time is left in their video, okay? So I'm gonna close this out. Our stage display looks good, except for our Planning Center clock. So I'm going to go back to our Pro Presenter preferences, and I'm going to go over to services. Okay, this is where you would log into our Planning Center online. I'm going to log in. You guys, I don't think need to log in unless you want to. I say I'm going to log in. Oh, I have Wi-Fi off, so I don't get text messages during this. Okay, so this is where you log into Planning Center, and back on our stage display, this is where you would choose what weekend we're showing on the back wall, okay? So each and every Saturday morning, something that Eric or I do when we come in is we reset the weekend clock so that this shows as Eric clicks along in Planning Center Live, this clock stays on the back wall. This is our speaking clock. This is whoever's on stage, they know how much time they need to talk. That'll show up right there. Okay, so that's stage display. There are some options within that. You can make the text bigger. You can make the text smaller. You can change up how they're formatted. The reason why this is important for you guys to know, I know a lot of this we don't mess with from week in to week out. Occasionally we'll get someone on stage that's like, man, I can't really read the lyrics or something like that. While we don't like to mess with our processes, I guess, too much if we don't have to, there is the option to jump in, change the size really quickly, maybe for that one song if we needed to help someone out. We can do that. Okay? Gonna close it out. Okay. Let's talk about what happens when a worship leader wants to change an arrangement of a song. Okay, so this is kind of the thorn in a lot of CG operators' sides. And so let's say we are doing Always Will, and let's say Blake comes up and he's like, hey, I really want to do 2 times through the chorus at the end instead of 1 time. So one of the easier ways to do that is you can just click on a slide, you can copy it over, and which is what we typically do. Okay, so another way that you can do it is you can go back up to what here we called the arrangement view. Okay, so right up here, you can click on that. Assuming that all of our song is labeled correctly, which Always Well is right now, you can come to here, and you can say this little gear icon here. You can click on that, and you can say Add New Arrangement. Okay, so Add New Arrangement. We're gonna call this arrangement, I don't know, Blake's arrangement. Okay, Dale's arrangement. Okay, we can call it Dale's arrangement. Typically we'd say, Elevate arrangement, or, Kids arrangement, VBS arrangement, something like that. Okay, hit enter. What that is going to do is that is going to now show you right next to Always Will. It's going to say this is Dale's arrangement. Okay. And it's going to give you some options of stuff to move around. Okay, so it's going to start you off with the default arrangement. This is the correct CD version of the song. But Blake's like, man, I really want to add the chorus 2 times through at the end. So all we have to do is come up here to grab the chorus. We can grab the chorus and say, I want to add a chorus there, chorus 1, chorus 2, and now we're updated. Now we have 2 choruses in a row. Okay, that is. When I was looking through this, I was like, man, mind blown, awesome. Okay, so if you spent any amount of time in CG, you're like, this is the best trick on the planet. Okay, and so you can do the same thing. You can get rid of stuff, like we can get rid of the instrumental pass, we can get rid of the pre-chorus here. You can get rid of everything you want. You can rebuild it. You can throw in your own arrangement. You can move stuff around. It's just a very simple way to rearrange the songs, okay? So within that, let's say we're going along, and then Blake's like, oh, just kidding, we're gonna go back to the default arrangement, okay? You're like, awesome, that's no problem, because all the arrangements are saved. You just go to that arrangement view again, hit that gear icon, and you can go back to the master arrangement, and you are good to go, okay? Any questions? Yeah, see, the CG operators are like, mind blown. Okay. Making sure I don't forget anything here. Okay, timing. Number one important thing, CG operator, is timing. Okay, specifically when it comes to, well, everything, really. I was about to say when it comes to worship, but if you've ever run notes for a pastor on a weekend, which is probably the most stressful thing of the whole deal, timing is everything, okay? You never want to put up a slide too early. You never want to put up a slide too late. So you really just want to put up all the slides on time. So what I've done is... Eric, if you wouldn't mind turning up my audio here in just a second. I'm going to drag in, I have just a video of the weekend services somewhere. I think I have it in here. Well, I have it in the video bin. Okay, so I'm going to fire this. Eric's going to fade this up here. And so this is weekend service. You'll see it kick in here in just a second. Pulled it just from a couple weeks ago. So it's pretty recent. And so I want to pay attention to a couple things. One is we get the lyrics up before he starts singing. What's really important with lyrics, you never leave me. For the majority of the songs, we want to advance the slide when we start saying the last lyric of the line, okay? This is where coming in to know the song is very important, okay? You never leave me. He goes straight into the next line in the verse. So you have to think about when you're reading a verse or when you're reading the lyrics and you've never heard a song before, your eyes have already read through the last part of the line, okay? So everyone already knows the last part of the line. We want to advance the slide right when he says on me, pretty much, okay? What that does is that gives everyone who has never heard the song before a small little advance on what the next words are, okay? We primarily do not put lyrics up for people that know the song, okay? If you know the song, you're going to sing it. You may still look at the lyrics out of habit, and if you're an English person, love to read, you may just love looking at the lyrics, but we primarily, our focus on lyrics is people who don't know the song. And so we want to cater to them a little bit when it comes to worship lyrics, okay? So you never leave me. We want to switch on the me part. Dale, yes? You mean like the actual transition itself? So we do a hard cut. Go on the what? I think it really depends on your song. There's going to be some slides that have to advance so quickly because we're singing so fast. The goal is to have the next slide up before we sing it, okay? So that there's enough time to basically see what's coming up. So there might be some times where you want to switch on leave. The majority of the time, like on this song specifically, like if I'm going to back up here,
It's so good to be in the house.
you can turn up just a little bit, E.
Let's lift up the name of Jesus together today. Come on.
There's a small break between You Never Leave Me and the next one. So switching on me is actually good.
Where I go, you will go. You never leave me.
So we switch there. 'Cause there's a small little pause right in there that we'd want to switch on. Now, just like you said, though, there are some that are much quicker that you may need to switch earlier. There's also some parts to where we have what are called instrumental breaks or instrumental passes or whatever you want to call them, where there's some breaks in the lyrics in the song. What you don't want to do is advance on the last word into an instrumental break. Okay, that just looks weird. I don't really have a better way to describe it, but you don't want to advance too early into a break. So this is where knowing, typically on most of our slides, if you have an instrumental break, like right in here, you'll see a blank slide coming up. That's a good cue for you to just let the slide sit there for just a little bit longer, okay? Because again, you don't want to advance early into a blank slide, and it doesn't help anybody, so. Okay? So timing-wise, timing is very, very importante. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play the song here. I want you guys to click along on your computer, okay? I know this may sound silly, but sometimes just actually doing it really helps. And so, I'm going to play from the top of the service. You can go ahead and click on the first slide of Always
Good morning,
Will, the
everybody.
black slide.
Welcome to church today. We're so glad you're here. Let's stand up to our feet together.
And I'm just going to talk
Come on,
through
put
when
your
I'm
hands together
firing.
this morning. It's so good to be in the house of God. Let's lift up
I
the
put a
name
black
of
box
Jesus
in
together
mine to
today.
cover
Come
up
on.
the lyrics. So he's about to sing, so I go ahead and put
Sing
it
this
up.
out. Where I go, you will go.
And then it's you.
You never leave me. When I'm lost, there's always hope.
There's a pause here, so I'm going to wait. Now I'm going to advance.
In every
Okay.
high, in every high, in every low.
I'm going to switch on
You are
me.
standing next to me. In the fire, there's always hope.
Pause.
Sing it out. I will lift my eyes, and my heart cry out. You're alive.
And then second alive.
With an anthem we raise up, our voice proclaims.
Switch on the second alive again.
Alive, your love keeps chasing me.
I'm going to go all the way
And
through.
it always will, it
Switch on the
always
will.
will. Your grace keeps changing me.
There's an instrumental coming up, so you want to pause.
It always will.
Then you can go to instrumental. Then
heart, in my joy,
Okay?
and in my
Does that make sense? Everybody feel good on timing? Okay, one quick note on speaker timing. Speaker timing, you never, ever, we call it stealing the thunder, okay? You can steal the thunder of worship all day long because it's okay, and we want to do that because people need to know what's coming up so they can sing along with the presenter. Speaking, you never, ever want to put up a slide too early, okay? If, say, he's on point one, and point one is be holy, okay? He could talk about 17, 18 different ways to be holy, but until he says the words be holy, we don't want to put it up, okay? Or until he says point number one. Sometimes Pastor Jeff does this. He'll do this, and he'll be talking, and he'll go like this. Most of the time, Tim's going to laugh at this one because we get burned by this a lot. Most of the time, that means go ahead and advance the slide, okay? But what we don't want to do is put up be holy while he's describing 16, 17 different ways to be holy, okay? It's what we jokingly call with Pastor Jeff stealing his thunder. We'll get back to the back, and he goes, man, y'all stole my thunder on point two. And I was like, sorry. Anyway, so we want to wait till he says point number one. In this case, point number one, we want to wait till he is pointing and looking at the screen, and you can obviously tell he's looking for that next point, okay? Or until he says the words be holy, okay? Muy importante. Yeah. Okay. That is, that's kind of the full run through. It's 10:15 right now. So that's kind of the full run through, at least through the basics of ProPresenter, okay? And so what I want to do is I want to go back to your packet here. I want to go back to these core competencies here, and I just want to look at these, okay? So page number 2, the bottom core competencies, it says be able to click through song lyrics in a timely fashion, okay? We've gone through that. Any questions on that? Everybody good? Okay, the second one, be able to edit grammatical mistakes or small adjustments on the fly, okay? So we talked about being able to go into editor mode. You can jump in, you can change stuff. On this, let me show you one more thing on this. This reminds me of one more thing. Say there is a typo on always will at the beginning on verse 1. You have two different ways to do this. You can hit your editor button, which will take you into editor mode, the full-fledged editor mode, okay? Or, I'm going to click on that again to get out of it. You can right-click on that one slide and hit quick edit. Within quick edit, it just brings up the one slide. It doesn't give you any formatting options. It doesn't give you any of that, which is fine because we just need to make a quick typo change. That's where you can go in and say, if we wanted to take out the comma, you can go in and take out the comma, close the box, now we're fixed, okay? I'll put the comma back in because it's going to drive me nuts. Then we'll close it out. Okay, so that's quick edit, okay? Everybody good on that? Okay, so the third one, be able to make more extensive edits if time is afforded, okay? And so that's where you would jump into either the arrangement view, the editor view. That's kind of what I mean by extensive edits, okay? Rearrange slide order, okay? That's where it comes into this arrangement view. Obviously, this probably goes without saying, but we're going to say it just to say it. You can click and drag slides anywhere you want to in your presentation to change up the order. So if one slide is just, in the wrong spot, you can switch it around. Okay? Next thing, be able to insert new songs or take out old songs of the playlist. That's what we did earlier when we were dragging from our library down to our playlist, okay? So that's where you'll take a song, drag it in down here. We talked about doing that. And be able to adjust videos between loop and stop. So that's what we covered earlier. I'm going to go back to our welcome here. It's where you right-click on your video, media properties, and under your properties section, you can change it to loop and stop. Okay? Be able to add in new graphics or video as needed. That's exactly what we did when we pulled in from the folder on the desktop. And then the final thing, be able to refresh or set up Planning Center online clock through stage display. That one's a little bit more tricky to show because I wasn't able to log in, but that's in the stage display settings when you go to ProPresenter 6, Preferences, Configure Stage Display. Okay? Any questions on any of that? Yeah. Yes.
Doing
Yes.
Disabling slides and any changes on the main CG computer on the left-hand side of the booth have to be replicated on the right-hand side of the booth for arrangements. I don't know if you want to click on that.
Yeah, so one thing that was hard for us to figure out how to teach on today was the fact that in our weekend environment we have two computers. So we have the computer that drives the side screen and we have a computer that drives the center screen, and those are linked together over the network so that when you fire one slide, it fires the exact same slide on that second computer. Yeah, the slide number specifically. So what's really important is that any changes that you make, at least for the weekend guys, any changes that you make to your primary computer, we have to make those exact same changes to the center screen computer. We have kind of a quick way of dragging those files over, which we'll kind of have to show you once we actually get, over there. But that's a good point to bring up. Any changes you make on one computer have to be made to the other computer. I will say sometimes we just knock out a couple slides, like if they just kill a chorus or something like that. One of the easier ways to do that is you can select a few slides here. The way you select a few slides is you can click and drag a box, okay? When you click and drag, you can't click and drag on top of a slide, because if you click and drag on top of a slide, you'll move the slide. But if you start your click and drag in between a slide, like on the gray area, you can select multiple slides like this, okay? You'll see the blue box go around them. Or you can hold down Command, and you can click on each individual slide that you want to select. Once you do that, you can right-click on any one of those selected slides and hit Disable Slide. What that does, disabling essentially lets you know that we don't want to fire this slide. Okay, if you're using your arrows, it'll skip right past the disabled slide. However, I like disable instead of deleting because if they say, hey, we're not going to do chorus 1, sometimes they may very well still do chorus 1. And so I like to disable them so that if they do go into chorus 1, you can still actually click on them even though they're disabled. But disabling will grayed out. It's not only a visual reminder that they're not going to do it, but if you're advancing by arrow keys, it'll skip right past it. Okay? Disabling, too, is one thing that you do not have to do on the second computer. So because we have two computers set up, the second computer is only going to fire the slides that you fire over here. So if you disable 10 slides over here, that just means you're not going to fire it here, which means you don't have to go and mess with the disable on that second computer. Okay? Thank you. That was good. Yes. 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 There's also one more thing I was going to point out too. You can right-click on any slide, any given slide, and you can, where's it at? You can set a hotkey, okay? That's for some of the more advanced guys if you want to. You can set a hotkey. Essentially, you can make this slide be, say, S. You can type in S. So anytime that you hit S, it's going to jump to that one particular slide. So a lot of guys that I've worked with in the past, like for pre-roll, instead of having to click around back to pre-roll, because pre-roll is something we go to often, they'll just assign the first slide on pre-roll P or something like that. And so they know that anytime they hit P on the keyboard, it's just going to go back to the first slide on pre-roll. You can do that for all the songs if you wanted to. I've seen some guys do that to where they make a hotkey for each song so they can jump to each song quickly. We're pretty programmed out in how we do things on the weekend, so we're not as on the fly to use hotkeys maybe as much as they could be used, but that doesn't mean you can't use them for whatever you want to. Again, hotkeys are one of those things, just like as you rearrange your screen and get comfortable and adjust your chair and everything else when you get in, it's one of those things that you can use to really benefit you. Yep, I think that's it. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, so yeah, so anything, so ProPresenter works like Photoshop. If you've ever worked with Photoshop before, you know that Photoshop has layers, or Premiere, or any of those type of programs. And so ProPresenter works on layers as well. And so there's a few layers in ProPresenter that we'll probably never use, like live video and some other things. But essentially, ProPresenter has what you call a background layer and a foreground layer. And then there's a couple layers on top of that it uses called masks and some other things that we use with some of our funky projection out there on the back wall. But essentially the two that are important to remember is background and foreground. And those directly relate to where you see clear slides and clear backgrounds in the top left corner. Essentially what that means is clear the background, clear the foreground. And so anytime you fire a video in your video bin, so if I were to fire the service again, that's actually playing in the background.
Well, good
The
morning,
reason
everybody.
why
Welcome
your
to
lyrics
church today. We're so glad
sit
you're
on
here.
top of
Let's
the
stand
video
to our feet together.
is because all these
Come on,
lyrics
put
are
your
in the
hands together this
foreground.
morning. It's so good to be in the house
So
of
they're going to
God.
sit on top of
Let's lift up the
anything
name
that
of
you
Jesus
throw
together
in the
today. Come on.
background. Now, if you were to, I'm going to hit clear on this. If you were to go to that folder, I have a folder in there called background videos. See, I'm going to drag this one in here. See how easy that was? Right there, okay? So the majority of the time when you see background videos, and you wouldn't see this black slide or black bar at the bottom, but you'd have some type of looping video going on behind your lyrics, okay? And so you'd have a background video, foreground lyrics. Now what you can do is if we had, and this is what we do on the weekend a lot specifically, is if you had an announcement, let's go to the announcement videos under welcome. This is a good example of a video being in the foreground though. So like if we, when we fire our video announcements here, it's gonna go in the foreground, which means it's gonna take over all the lyrics, it's gonna take over everything else because it's on top, it's on the foreground. If we were to set this video by right-clicking on it, media behavior to background, if we were on a song and we fired the announcement videos,
Walk-up registration is
you can put your lyrics on top of that video. So there's certain key videos that are like announcements, like title package, pretty much all of our videos really. We want to make sure that those take over anything else that we send to our screens, and so we make sure that those are set to foreground. You'll see the different icon here. This is an icon indicating that's a background video. So you'll want to right-click media behavior, make sure it says foreground. Just like we said before with stop and loop, when you import a video, ProPresenter does a pretty good job of determining whether it's a foreground video or a background video. Foreground and background, by its determination, will also set it to be stop and loop as well. So you can have a looping foreground video, but if you, that's why we always check it. But anyway, that's the difference between foreground and background. Clear as mud? Good. Todd, you feel good?
Yeah. On timing,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's a slower song,
Mm-hmm.
like last word, and then a little bit of a pause. You kind of want to come in the middle of that pause, or right to the middle, fire the next sort of.
Yeah, so it's kind of more or less, there's a little bit of art to it, I guess. There's no like really set way to kind of say, hey, this is exactly when we want to transition. On those moments, that's when it really depends on knowing the song. But in that specific case, yeah, you do want to come in a good few beats, I don't even know what you want to call it, maybe a full bar or something, you know, in front of somebody who's starting to sing. And so what's really helpful is just always keeping in your mind lyrics are for people who don't know the song. And so whatever is most helpful for them, still artistically, we don't want to put up the lyrics over a full instrumental break, but whatever is helpful for them to give them just that little bit of heads up so they don't feel like they don't know the song that well.
What about the worship leaders, like at the beginning of the song, do they prefer to have the words kind of, if they're thinking
Yeah.
about something, want to have those words in front of them?
Yes.
Because they kind of look at me like,
Yeah.
"Where is that?"
So let's just say here, I'm going to clear this out. So if we're on always will. So stage display really helps us with that, first of all. So stage display was projected on the back wall. It has your current slide and next slide. What you do want to make sure is that you're on the right song and at least on the slide before where they want to go. So because they'll see that next slide coming up and they'll see that and they'll know, hey, CG's tracking with me. I feel good. what the easiest way to throw off a worship leader is to just throw up the wrong slide or something like that, because they see that on the back wall, and then they start thinking, hey, is everyone singing with me? Is everyone doing this? And so it's a good other thing to keep in mind is not only are people watching the side screens, but the worship leaders are watching that back screen, mostly like a hawk. And so so it's kind of all of our worship leaders, thankfully, they all know the songs really well, but it is kind of a quick lifeline of what happens when you just have a brain fart. And so as long as you're here, they'll see this. Worship leaders sometimes, like you saw in the video, Blake will say something like, sing this out. When they give cues like that, you'll want to follow, even if it's just a little earlier than what you may normally throw it up. They'll say, sing this out. Sometimes, I've had, just in my experience of technical directing at churches, sometimes worship leaders will use that as a cue of, I'm not sure the lyrics are up and right. And so, or sometimes they'll use it as hey, I'm going to verse 2. Like they'll give a quick preview of, hey, we're changing this and we're going to this instead of what we planned on. So you want to pay attention to what the worship leader's saying. When they say sing this out, that's a cue. Let's go ahead and put the worship lyrics up. When they say, sometimes they'll sing a quick preview of verse 2, that first line, you'll want to go ahead and put it up as soon as you find it, if it's a change. But yeah, that's just a good thing to keep track of. Anybody else?
Well, that's all.
Yeah.
Transition timing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so some of these computers are a bit older, which doesn't help us. And so when you set like dissolves and stuff on these computers, sometimes it has a little bit of delay. But up here, just like all the other transitions, in your master transition right here, you can go and you can select cut. That's essentially what we use on the weekends. And once you select that, it's just a cut to. It doesn't dissolve or anything like that. Yes, yeah, so if you were to select a dissolve, down here, your duration, that's where you can decide how long it takes to dissolve. For most things, if you're going to use a dissolve, you probably don't want to go much more than a second long. A second dissolve is fairly long when it comes to, especially lyrics and stuff. If I use a dissolve, like if we use dissolves on the pastor's notes or something like that, we typically use anywhere from like half a second to a second. So you just want to be careful with.
One of the things, just something I was pointing out to Todd,
Mm-hmm.
when you choose from the master selector up there,
Mm-hmm.
the default is actually controlled by down next to the new slide plus, there's the
Right.
the dissolve option
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Yep.
That's the default for the slide.
Yeah. So this is.
You've got it set to default, and if you're wondering about your timer on duration, it's going to come out right there.
Yeah, so this is kind of your, I guess, master of the whole program right here. This will control your individual documents up here. Anybody else? Everybody good? John? Mm-hmm. Arrangement view is the best thing ever. And we have just started to use it, to be quite honest with you. So we've never really used it. We've always just rearranged as copy paste and stuff. And so you won't find right now, I say that because you won't find right now very many different arrangements out there because we haven't really used it. So what it heavily relies on is all this being labeled correctly. If you're not labeled correctly, arrangement view is going to really mess you up. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't. No, it won't force the location, so I might have to. Yeah, we'll walk you through that. Yeah, we'll show you. We'll talk you through that one. Anybody else? Dale, you feel good? Felicia, you feel good? Good. Okay. Well, I think that about wraps it up. I think that's everything in my notes here. So thank you guys for coming this morning. I hope it was beneficial to you. I know for sure we'll have this recorded, so this will be something that we can hand to all of our new CG ops as something that they can walk through and get familiar before they get hands-on the weekend. And so yeah, so I think that's it.